Hello, welcome to Prince Edward County. Where I'm standing here, you see Lake Ontario, and indeed across the way you see what's called North Marysburg. This is the beautiful Prince Edward County, a place that has grown because of tourism, because of its vineyards, because of its arts, because of a whole variety of wonderful things, of a creative economy, if you will. Further to the east, it is their ambition to fill Lake Ontario from Wolfe Island all the way to Main Ducks Island. That is to say, for over 100 kilometers of wind farms, the whole of eastern Ontario. Across the way in Cape Vincent, our American cousins are already starting to feel the effects of Wolfe Island, and they're 3 kilometers away. So rest assured that this whole area, this of natural beauty, the whole 1,000 square kilometers of Prince Edward County is going to be threatened with having more high structure buildings of 40 stories or more than all of Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal put together. This beautiful land and space is under threat. And that's true throughout Ontario. All of us need to be concerned. Hello there, my name's Bob McMurtry. I've lived long, as you can readily see, and I've done a variety of things in my life, including at one stage being a missionary, an orthopedic surgeon, a chief surgeon. I have been a dean of medicine and assistant deputy minister to Health Canada. I was on the Romano Commission. I have spent years chairing a research enterprise looking at determinants of health. All these things have led to me being in the current situation, but I never imagined I'd be spending 30 hours a week on the issue of wind turbines. We should all come together in the effort to overcome this misguided Regulation and Green Energy Act. I've been involved in this issue for 2.5 years, and for the first half year, believe it or not, I wished a wind turbine in my yard. And I checked on it and became surprised. I became even alarmed. And then I attended a lecture by Professor John Harrison, Professor Emeritus of Physics at Queen's University, and he revealed very clearly that there is a problem, a serious problem with noise and what it does to people. What I want to talk to you and what I've since learned to be true are 4 things, what I'd call the 4 pillars. Number 1, people all over the world are reporting adverse health effects. That is known, that is clear, that is indisputable. Number 2, the adverse health effects of which they report are serious. The most common symptom is sleep disturbance. Sleep disturbance, stress, psychological distress accumulate in people, and that becomes very serious. It is clearly a risk for significant chronic disease, including, according to environmental health perspectives, and I'm quoting a journal here, heart disease and cancer. It is a very serious matter. The third thing I know to be true is there are no evidence-based guidelines for safe setbacks of wind turbines and where they ought to be positioned in relationship to humans. In spite of the decades they claim to be working, and in many countries that research has never been done. And the fourth thing that is beyond a shadow of a doubt is that there is research required. We have to know what's safe. We have to know what it takes to hold people safe. Our preliminary work suggests a minimum of 2 kilometers. The province of Ontario has settled on 550 meters. How they came to that conclusion, I don't understand. How they came to that conclusion, we can't find out. What I do know about 550 meters is that it will not protect people. We've encountered far more victims than we ever wished. A minority have reported, because in surveys a minority is what you usually get. But of those people who have felt these adverse health effects, 106 have documented their problem. And I am quoting the numbers for you that to indicate the worst problems they get is the sleep disturbance, as I mentioned. The average setback of people who are suffering these adverse health effects is 880 meters. And the government's trying to tell us that 550 is adequate. If they went to 1,500 meters, that would protect 98% of people, at least of those who are reporting. If they went to 2,000 meters, that would be all of the people but one that we've had report. How much risk do they think is acceptable? Look at the wind turbines. Every research paper, every peer-reviewed research paper that's looked at it is finding incidents that range from 8 to 30%. Even the wind industry and the government acknowledge this. We have asked that this be addressed. There are over 50 municipalities in Ontario that agree. The Canadian Federation of Municipalities agrees. The Ontario Agricultural Organization agrees. This is not acceptable. And what do we have in response? We have refusal. We have the wind industry saying it's not necessary. The government finally and at last are acknowledging, well, perhaps we should do longitudinal study. That's a quote from the Premier. Of course, the government of Japan decided long ago they should be looking at it. But that's as good as it gets. That will take 4 or 5 years. How many more people are going to be harmed? How many more people will be put out of their homes before appropriate action is taken? Well, all body parts have a natural resonance, so that with a low frequency in infrasound, which is present in prominent amounts, according to Rick James, who is a world-renowned acoustician, what you can get is sympathetic vibration of your brain, of your knee joints. The International Standards Organization has demonstrated that all body parts have a natural frequency, which tend to be low frequency or infrasound. So you can, there's an enormous number of ways in which the body can be affected. And there's also ways in which it can be affected on a microcellular level, which is another complex explanation that perhaps we'll get into later. What I wanted to talk about is the reality of meeting the people who are feeling the brunt of the intrusion into rural communities, feeling the brunt of neighbors fighting neighbors, families divided on the issue of wind turbines. The people I've met have very sad stories. They're leaving their homes. They can't get a decent night's sleep. Their health has been compromised. Some have teachers and have to stop teaching until they can recover. But perhaps the most evocative stories for me are those involving children. They're not NIMBYs. They don't have political opinions. They don't mind the look of the turbines. They are the ultimate victims. One 2-year-old, for example, let's call her Kiara, she couldn't sleep at night. She couldn't sleep because her ears hurt so much. Her parents were worried, they didn't know what was wrong. She ended up having 11 visits to the emergency department and various other health facilities, and they could never find anything wrong. The key was that when Kiara got away from the wind industry, the wind farms, she was better. She had to be 4 or 5 kilometers away and she was better. When she returned, the problem returned. She couldn't sleep in the area of wind turbines. Another very sad story is that of someone else called JL. JL is congenitally blind, but he's a very clever young boy, and he goes to school and he makes out because he has acute hearing. And he almost can hear people and when they're coming and know where they are even as they stand still. He's made all sorts of remarkable accommodations. And when he moves in the community of the school, sometimes it's hard to know that he is sight impaired. Well, his parents found out wind turbines were going to come and be 800 meters from his home. Quite understandably, they were concerned. They decided to take him near an existing wind farm. Now remember, this young man is blind. As they drove closer and came to about 2 kilometers away, he covered his ears and he said, "Something's wrong." And they said, we're getting closer to wind farms. You have to turn around. He couldn't bear it. And that's what his parents did. And they planned to move. Of course, what happened is wind turbines are coming to another location. There appears to be, increasingly in Ontario, in rural Ontario in particular, no safe place. That is what the Green Energy Act has done. It's very important to understand that this has been reported all over the world. When wind farms are coming as opposed to actually being there, you start to see this phenomenon. People are concerned because there's a lot of possibilities that they're hearing about. Legitimate reports of adverse health effects, loss of property value, loss of amenity. They no longer have a right to peace and quiet. With the current regulations, to be certain, that peace and quiet is jeopardized. It would be surprising if many people didn't react in this fashion. The saddest thing of all is that some people buy in, and some of those live to regret it, and they can't get out of their contracts. Others are not part of it, and they have a disagreement with those who want the wind turbines because of economic advantage. And that has been known to divide families and divide communities. And community vitality, where you're happy to live, where your neighbors know you, and you feel comfortable walking down the street, is an extremely important determinant of health and well-being. It's a powerful predictor of how long you'll survive, for example. And having a bad community will take years from your life. This is what's being produced by these policies. Community vitality, in short, is being compromised. The strength of the opposition to the wind farms and the inappropriateness of the regulations is growing by the day. Everybody must learn the truth. It's a fascinating fact. I have met many people who have come from believing in wind turbines as I did, as a green and good energy, to believing they're a very bad idea when they read into them. What I have never met is a person who held that conviction that they're a bad idea and went on the pro-wind side. What's going to happen here in Prince Edward County, across the water, beyond the point, and the land back here, is happening throughout Ontario. And we're only 10% of the way there. More are coming. I know of no safe place.